नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नन्दगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति सुपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च। श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं सहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी भानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंश कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमती भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषण्यवादी करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानंद माधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। हरि ओम तत्सत्। Hare Krishna. So welcome to all the devotees. So today in Kuala Lumpur we celebrated His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj's Vyas Puja organized by the disciples. The Tithi was a few days ago, but we had a nice celebration today. So happy Vyas Puja to all the disciples and aspiring disciples. Today we are focusing on the chapter 23 of the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavad. The chapter 23 is entitled The Sishumara Planetary Systems. The 5th canto is comprised of 26 chapters. 5th chapter is mainly focused, apart from discussing the descendants of Prevrat, it is focused, most of the second half is focused on discussing the cosmology of the universe. So we are starting chapter 23 today. So we are almost towards the end of the canto. So after today's chapter, only another 3 more chapters. Then we would have completed 5th canto. So these are milestones worth remembering in our life. Not that I went to New York, I went to Paris. These things are not going to be of any value at the end of our life. I read up to 5th canto. Of course, we hope we all read the Bhagavatam many, many times, Chaitanya Charitamrita many times in our lifetime. And it becomes indeed a part. That is how it is supposed to be. Our constant accompaniment. Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhaktir Bhavati Neshti. So for devotion to be fixed, one must be regularly absorbed in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we are on chapter 23. The interesting thing about this chapter, apart from the name Sishumara Planetary System, is perhaps I'm not claiming this, but perhaps the shortest chapter in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We need to do research, but this chapter has exactly 9 shlokas. So before some of you get excited, wow, Prabhuji is going to finish in 15 minutes. Hopefully you became sad, because that is how, as Vaishnavas, we are supposed to respond. Class will end early today. We want to hear more, we want to hear more. Huh? That was the culture of the sages of Naimisharanya who were hearing from Sudha Goswami. Anyway, I mean, I'm not comparable to any of those speakers, but the point is that the eagerness must be there. But what I want to say is that even though the topic today is focused on Sishumara, and we have already had some preliminary discussions on Sishumara in our last class, we will be not just covering the Shishumara planetary systems, but like what I promised, because I want to complete the discussion of the vertical universe. We will not just stop with Shishumara, but we will discuss a bit more about Maharlok, Janarlok, Tapolok, Satyalok, and Mahavaikuntha. So this is going to be very interesting. It's not a part of this chapter. And much of the knowledge that we will be sharing, of course, which I have received, no credit to myself, which I'll be sharing will be very interesting for you. So please stay tuned and do not disappear after 9 shlokas are done. So I can guarantee you this is something which it's very hard to get this kind of a digested presentation. Thanks to all those devotees who made that effort. I'm simply a postman. I'm just sharing what I've heard from them. So thanks to all the great souls who have put in that effort. So I hope the session will be interesting. So with today's class, we will aim to complete the horizontal we have discussed. The upward vertical we will complete. After today's class, the downward vertical from the next class will start. So we have covered the disk. Now we are going upward. We have covered up to Dhruva. But up to Dhruva, which is Bhur Bhuva Swaha, Dhruva Lok, as we discussed the orbits of the planets in our last class. Okay. Just quickly bring up the picture, so we do not totally lose track. Okay, I think I need to go to that other picture. Just a minute. So we don't miss the bigger view. Just bear with me. I go picture hunting for all of you so that I can facilitate your better understanding. Now let me share. Second. Am I? Okay. So you have seen this picture a few times. I hope you can already see this. So from the base of Bhumandal, across all the various dvipas, all the way up to Dhruvalok, this whole region, this is obviously Bhu, the land. Bhuvar, this region below the moon up to the Bhumandal is Bhuvar. Surya Dev, we discussed in its trajectory, is rotating in the middle of Bhuvar. 1 lakh yojanas up, 1 lakh yojanas down. Exactly in the middle. And not only is it in the middle of Bhuvarlok, it is right in the middle of the universe. The orbital plane of the sun. Right in the center. Upwards, we discussed about the moon, we discussed the 28 nakshatras, we discussed the various planets, all the way up to Dhruva. We discussed that this whole block is Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha. Surya, Chandra, the nakshatras and the taras, they illuminate this, mainly the sun, but also other luminaries like the moon and the nakshatras, they illuminate this region. But the light of the sun doesn't go beyond Dhruva. Dhruva defines the upper limit of Svargaloka. Dhruva is an eternal planet because it is a kind of Vaikuntha Loka. It is a fixed luminary in the sky, not orbiting, but rather the pivot around which all luminaries rotate. Correct? We spoke about that. So this particular chapter is focused on a wrap up of the discussions. In the last class, we discussed about all these various luminaries, the planets and the luminaries and their orbits. So today, in the Sishumara planetary system discussion, there is going to be a summary of this particular view, where the Bhagavatam describes that Dhruvalok, which defines the upper limit of the Bhur Bhuva Swaha realm, and above Dhruvalok you can see the Mahar Janar Tapa Satya. This diagram is not to scale, but it's a simplified diagram. As you can see, the distances between Dhruva and Mahar is 10 million yojanas. The distance between these two is 20. This distance is 80. This distance is 120. So the distance are exponentially increasing, but this is not to scale. This gives you at least a vertical diagram in one view. Otherwise, I'll require 10 more screens. Diagram to scale. So it is said that Dhruvalok, of course, is the residence of Kshirodakshay Vishnu, is also the residence of Dhruva. Now, Dhruva, he was granted the benedictions of residing and predominating on this planet as the most preeminent devotee of the Supreme Lord. And along with him, of course, many other purified souls, the Vaishnavas, are residing on that planet and are continuously glorifying the Lord. It is said Dhruva will continue to live on this Dhruvalok since the time he occupied this position until the end of the Kalpa. What is Kalpa? The day of Brahma. After that, he will go back to God. Okay, so no worries. So he's still there. Just in case any of you manage to get there, take his association and we can hear more detailed account of his interaction with the Lord firsthand. So we are definitely discussing it. So we discussed how also this pole star, being a fixed pivot, is the pivot around which all the various orbits of the planets and the stars, they all are circumambulating this pivot. So these are known as Vata Rashmi. Vata Rashmi means these are ropes which are all tied to the pole star at one end, and on the other end they are being tied to various planets and luminaries. So this is just giving you a generic description, high level description. At the bottom obviously is Bhumandal. So all the details are not shown, but this is just to give you an idea. So as if each of these planets and stars, the sun, the moon, the Navagrahas, the Nakshatras, including the zodiac, which is resting on the Thala Chakra and rotating, everything is ultimately connected to this pole star. This pole star is like holding everything with threads. What kind of threads? Threads made of subtle wind, subtle Vata Rashmi. And they are going around. The Bhagavatam gives a very interesting description. It says, just like a bull, in villages there is a bull who around a yoke goes in a circular motion and they are thrashing the grains which are kept in the center. So that kind of a motion, and the bull remains in a fixed position because he is tied in such a way that he can neither come closer nor go further away. It goes exactly in a circular fashion around the yoke. Similarly, tied by this kind of a rope, the planets are kept in their fixed position and their orbits. They are controlled. Another example is given that the planets are kept floating through the influence of wind and by the force of the karma. Just like a cloud, which may be carrying tons of water, or an eagle who's flying in the air, is steadily moving at a particular pace because of the effect of the wind and because of their individual karma. So that is the example the Bhagavad gives. Essentially, what the Bhagavatam is saying is, through the arrangement of material nature and karmic effects, all these objects, these planets and stars, which are controlled by certain predominating deities who have their own karma, and based on their karma, they have certain kind of a body and destination, and they are actually moving around on their own chariots. Just like the sun has a chariot, all of these planets also have their own kind of chariots. They are going around in their specific orbits. So wonderfully, under the influence of time, this whole Kala Chakra, controlled by the Supreme Lord, but tied at the top, this immovable Dhruva, everything moves around. Please note, we discussed according to the view of the Bhagavad, the earth is stationary vis-a-vis the Bhumandal. Innermost here is Ilavarta Varsha. Ilavarta Varsha is in the innermost, true, but within Jambudvipa. But the southern tip of Jambudvipa, small, perched at the southernmost tip of Jambudvipa is Bharata Khanda. There is Bharata Varsha, there is Bharata Khanda, the southernmost tip, perched up on a conical support made of ice, solidified water. I had already shown that picture. I hope you all recollect that. I don't have it handy now. I'm not going to go back there. But the point is, you don't have to have that picture in your mind. The key point is, Earth is stationary. All of these, if you see, all of these objects in the sky, these various grahas and others, they are all rotating. There is a rotation here. The Bhagavatam says that all these luminaries which are in the sky, when we look upwards, of course, for us, upwards depends on where we are on the earth. Correct? Even though the earth is stationary, the north of the earth, if you say stationary earth, imagine an earth globe. I just want to help you imagine this. If there is a round earth placed here, the earth, which is axis straight, the north pole will be at the top and the south pole will be at the bottom. Correct? Because it is the south pole where the earth is perched on the southern tip of Jambudvipa. I hope you are with me. The northern pole of the earth is upwards. And if you draw a line straight going upwards, it will point roughly in the direction of the pole star. Okay, so that's why this is known as true north. Dhruva is known as true north. Of course, based on exactly where you are on the earth, you will have your own relative north, south, east, west. But now when we are talking from the perspective of the universal geography, the true north is the North Pole, South Pole axis. That the North Pole axis going upwards is pointing towards Dhruva. Some imagination will help. I hope I have given enough information to help you imagine. If not, later I can go back to this point and try to show you more images. Why I'm mentioning this is, when we look out into the sky, depending on where we are on the earth, you will see a slightly different sky. Slightly different sky in the sense that the stars and the planets are moving. They have a different particular position according to their orbits. At the same time, you are at a particular place on the earth. When you see from that particular point, you will see a different orientation of the sky above you. If you want to see the perfect sky looking upward from here, you have to sit on the top of the North Pole. Then you will see exactly looking upwards what you would see if you are exactly at the bottom here. This is how you would see. Please remember, the sky is not static. All these grahas and nakshatras are in their own orbits. But at least you will see Dhruva exactly on top of your head if you are on the North Pole. Okay, I hope you get that. If you're on the equator, you're not going to see the Dhruva lok exactly on top of your head. If you're not able to imagine this, don't worry too much. If you can, good. Now, why I'm mentioning this is the Bhagavatam describes this entire zodiac belt along with all these planets and stars and compares it to a dolphin form. Do you see in this picture this dolphin? The dolphin which extends from its tail, which touches the pole star, going all the way down here. All the way down. Practically up to the point of Rahu and Ketu. So this particular inverted dolphin in Sanskrit is known as Sishumara. Sishumara means dolphin. So why this dolphin image is drawn here? The reason this dolphin is drawn is because all the luminaries in their own respective orbits, like what we discussed here, if we place them in the sky and we draw them here based on their actual distances, all of them, when combined together, nakshatras, the sun, the moon, the navagrahas of the sun and the moon, the nakshatras and various other luminaries, all of them added up together have the shape of a dolphin. Now, in cities like Kuala Lumpur, if you look up into the sky, or from Delhi or Bombay or Chennai or Bangalore, wherever you are, please don't complain that you don't see a dolphin. Because first of all, most of the luminaries we don't see. And it depends on the orientation from where you are seeing, whether you can see the dolphin clearly or not. Because this is an inverted dolphin. With the head down and the tail at the top. The topmost tip of the tail of the dolphin is Dhruvaloka. The part of the fin of this dolphin are said to be Prajapati, Agni, Indra, and Dharma. Now, why these personalities are mentioned? It is said they are actually circumambulating Dhruvaloka, because Dhruva is such a great planetary system. They said Indra, Dharma, Agni, Prajapati are always circumambulating Dhruvaloka, because Dhruvaloka is where Kshirodakshay Vishnu is residing. Then the various planets, and I'm not going to go into all of these individually, as you can see, various planets based on their orbit from the central axis between Dhruva and Mount Meru, if they are placed based on their relative position from that axis, you will get this kind of a shape. So there are some objects on this line, there are some objects on this line, and all of them together, you can see the Saturn, Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, Venus, 14 nakshatras are on this side of the dolphin. Another 14 from Pushya to Uttarashad are on this side of the dolphin. The lowermost tip almost is Yamaraj. And here there is Rahu, Ashwini Kumara, Surya, Chandra. This entire form, which is dolphin shaped, is compared a Vishwarupa form of the Lord. This form is known as Shishumara form. It is a representative of the Supreme Lord. So this is the details of on which part of the Shishumar, which planets are situated. I'm not going to read through this. You can look at it at your own leisure. This is given in great detail in the Srimad Bhagavat, the verses. Around 3 verses cover these details. One interesting thing from all this is on the abdomen of this dolphin is said to be Akasha Ganga. Have you heard the term Akasha Ganga? Akasha Ganga, when translated in English, translates as Milky Way. So modern astronomy thinks of our galaxy as Milky Way. And in certain places, you can see the Milky Way galaxy to a particular extent in the sky. Unfortunately, not from most of our cities, but the span of the galaxy. I had some pictures, but I didn't have time to put them together here. But you can search in the sky, you can see. The Bhagavatam says that what is actually Akash Ganga, it is actually the Ganges river which is coming down from the heavenly planets and flowing. The Ganga who's flowing in the sky is said to be Akash Ganga. So we discussed this in a few chapters ago, that the Ganges comes from the spiritual world, from the head of Lord Shiva. It flows to Dhruvalok, from Dhruvalok to the Saptarshi Lok, then the residents of Chandralok come and are continuously transferring the water from there to the moon. From the moon, it flows where? Anybody remembers? Memory test. I'm telling you from memory. I don't have notes.
From the moon to the top of Mount Sumeru.
Yes, go. Good, very good. So it comes on top of Mount Sumeru, breaks into 4 streams from the 4 sides, comes down, flows through the respective varshas, and flows into the saltwater ocean. Correct? So Ganga is also flowing through space. Yeah. Sorry, anyone wanted to say something? Yeah. Okay. So a part of the Ganges is flowing through space, which is known as Akasha Ganga. So this was an interesting point. That's why I thought I will mention it very explicitly. And that Akasha Ganga is said to be residing on the abdomen of this dolphin. Okay, so this is the dolphin-like picture. You also saw it here. And these are the details of what all resides on the dolphin. Now, what is the significance of this dolphin? We are already almost at the end of the chapter, by the way. We're discussing the last 2 verses of the chapter now, before we move on to the other topics. Prabhupada many times explains that those who are not yet fixed in devotion and do not have a faith in the transcendental form of the Lord are inclined to conceive of the Lord in terms of a universal form. So this is one kind of meditation of the Lord being situated in this Shishumara, as this inverted dolphin, where practically all these celestial bodies all the way up to Dhruvalok, which form this dolphin-like inverted figure, are conceived to be a Devata Maya form. Sarva Devata Mayam Rupam. Because all the devatas, their abodes are situated here, right? Sarva Devata Mayam Rupam. So the Bhagavatam says that certain individuals prefer to meditate on the Lord with this kind of a meditation. Why? Because then you can look into the sky and see, oh, this entire universe, whatever I see up, this whole great sky with all these luminaries. What is this? This is the body of the Lord. So that is one way in which people can fix their mind on the Lord through a conception. So this is obviously not a spiritual form, but this is an imaginary form. So this is basically imagining a great big form of the Lord in the form of a. So there are various conceptions of Vishwarupa, and the Bhagavatam describes multiple conceptions. This is one of the conceptions. There is also another conception where the different planetary systems are compared to different parts of the Vishwarupa of the Lord. So the lower planets are the lower part, the middle planets are the middle part of the body, the upper planets are the chest and the face and onwards, up to Satyaloka. There is that kind of a comparison also. There are other conceptions of Vishwarupa which say, oh, the rivers on the earth are his veins, the mountains are his bones. So there are various kinds of conceptions. So all these various conceptions, they're all authentic, but essentially what we have to understand is that this whole conception, these kind of conceptions are mentioned so that those who want to have a clear visualization of the Lord, not in a spiritual form, but a form which is related to the manifested universe, they can conceive of it and through meditation on that particular form, purify themselves. Because even if you see this universe, because the universe is permeated by the Lord, empowered by the Lord and his manifestation, when we see the universe in connection with the Lord, gradually we purify ourselves. And at one point, the yogi becomes qualified and eligible to elevate his understanding from a material universal form to a spiritual form. So the Sishumara is one such Vishwarupa conception. So the Bhagavatam says that the body of Sishumara should be considered the external form of Lord Vishnu. It's composed of all the devatas. So the Bhagavatam recommends that those who are inclined to worship this kind of a form, they should meditate on this form 3 times a day, 3 sandhyam, morning, afternoon, evening. And it recommends a particular mantra, the translation of which is, my obeisances unto you who have assumed the form of time, the resting place of all planets, the master of all demigods, I meditate upon. Why the mention of time? Because this whole Shishumar dolphin is not steady in the sky, it is continuously rotating. So it is also representing the Kala Chakra. Correct? All these planets here, are they stationary? All these, no, they are all rotating. So actually you will see that the dolphin is rotating. Of course, if you look up, you will not see it visibly rotating because it is rotating at the pace of its own orbital movements and Kala Chakra. Okay, of course, all of these objects also have their own orbital speed. So anyway, I'm not expecting you to imagine it. I'm also not able to imagine it clearly. But essentially, this is the concept. It is like an upside down dolphin, which itself also is moving in the sky as the Kala Chakra. So those who meditate on this Lord in this form 3 times a day by chanting this mantra that we just recited the translation of, they are considered to worship the Supreme Person, who is the resting place of all the devatas, Adi Devikam. Such people will surely become free from all sins. It doesn't say it will give you pure devotional service. It says such people will become pure for all sins. So this is a preliminary conception. Because some people say, oh, what is God? Oh, this boy who's holding a flute. What kind of God is this? He looks like me. No, this person cannot be God. Oh, you see this whole universe, all these stars and planets, that's God. It's the form of God. Oh, yes. This is a good idea. So some people who are still fixed in the material conception, they are more excited by this kind of a grand display at a universal scale of the form of the Lord. So they will become eventually purified and come to a higher level of conception. So that brings us to the conclusion of the discussion of the Sishumara planetary systems. So this is also another picture which I just wanted to show you. So this is the Kala Chakra. So vis-a-vis the Kala Chakra, this is how the dolphin is oriented. So the Kala Chakra, if you recollect, all the nakshatras and the rashis, they are all, actually the rashis are fixed on Kala Chakra. The nakshatras are also fixed on the Kala Chakra. I think around 2.25 nakshatras, if I recollect correctly, per rashi. Around there. We had some discussion between 27 and 28 nakshatras. Looks like there is some Puranic story about one nakshatra opting out, maybe resigned from the job or something like that. So there were from 28 it became 27. But anyway, 28 luminaries exist because that 28 nakshatra exists, but apparently has a slightly different purpose. So this is the view. So this is how it looks like. So the Bhagavatam says that this entire Shishumar is representing the region from here, which is practically, Rahu, which is almost coming at the point of Rahu and Yamaraj. So Yamaraj is situated here, practically going all the way to Dhruva. So this entire region is covered. Now, even though this chapter doesn't discuss it, we will go further up. Because you're all devotees, you're not interested in this part, right? I'm sure none of you are interested to go to Indraloka or any of the heavenly planets or any of these Bhauma Swarga or Divya Swarga. Correct? Anybody interested? Okay.
No
Some
problem.
of you are saying, no? Very good. Rebo. So you can say no now, and I trust you and answer. But when a living entity goes back to Godhead, he's taken through all these lokas and all the swargas, and he's shown everything enjoyable in all the lokas. And if he gets distracted even a little bit and he thinks, oh, I want to enjoy, he's immediately sent there instead of going back to Godhead. Okay. So this is warning, to all of you. So that's why we have to be thoroughly disgusted with material enjoyment. And that is where the concept of the higher planets comes. The concept of the higher planets is Mahar Janar Tapa Satya. The common aspect is that in Bhur Bhuva Swaha are the people, are the entities, even though they are pious, they are generally interested with material enjoyment. Even the devatas, even though they are very pious and some are even great devotees, but generally there is karma, mishra, bhakti at best. Which means they want to do devotion, enjoy matter. They are not yet thoroughly frustrated with material enjoyment. Of course, there are exceptions because there are great purified souls. Amongst the devatas, there are some pure devotees. But in general, this is the realm where living entities are still trying to find pleasure in matter. In fact, most of the devatas are living entities. Even Dhruva is a living entity for that matter. Of course, the Lord on Dhruva Lok is the Supreme Lord. Surya is considered an incarnation of Narayan, Surya Narayan. Otherwise, practically all the other personalities who are the predominating deities of these various planets and nakshatras, they are all living entities, and almost all of them are still within the purview of karma, material enjoyment, and still having the desire to lord it over material nature. That's why for those who are spiritually serious, this zone is not so exciting. Correct? Just like for a very studious student, when he sees a group of children who are always just playing, making noise, doing mischief, not studying, they are not really interested in being there. They like being in a place where everybody's sitting in the library, sitting together, writing notes, discussing. So the serious students are here. These are the truants. These are the people who, living entities who are still trying to have a good time in material nature. So this is one important point too. So this is broadly the structure of the universe. So we have already discussed, these are the various heights. I'm not going to go into the mathematics, but we said above the Bhumandal, there is the sun, then the moon, then the constellations, Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, then the Saptarishis, then Dhruva. So this is Swarga. The Sishumara is in this region. Beyond Dhruva, above Dhruva, start the upper planetary systems. It is said 10 million yojanas above Dhruva is Maharloka. 20 million yojanas beyond Maharloka is Janarloka. 80 million yojanas beyond Jana is Tapa. And 120 million above Tapa is Satyaloka. Then there is free space for another 16.2 million yojanas. Beyond the free space of the 16.2 million yojanas, then there are the coverings of the universe which start. The innermost covering being earth, water, then fire, then air, then ether. False ego, Mahatattva, seven coverings. Each successive covering being 10 times the width of the previous one. Just fabulous. So the dimensions. The inner, this is a spelling mistake, the inner dimension of the Brahmanda, the inner diameter is 500 million yojanas. But the earth layer itself in width is 1 billion yojanas. Twice of the diameter of the entire inner. When you say inner, you know what I'm talking about? This is the inner dimension. This is the inner circle, right? You remember our universal bubble, right? This layer, earth, this is not to scale, is twice the diameter of this entire circle, this bubble. Are you able to imagine? That is the universe. I don't know. This diagram can never be drawn to scale. This diagram is into 10, into 10, into 10, into... How to draw this diagram? This goes to 10 raised to 7. You cannot draw this diagram, but this is just to give an idea that the innermost diameter in where this entire planetary systems are situated is only 500 million yojanas. The earth covering is twice its diameter. And that's just the beginning. The water is 10 times the earth in terms of its width. And another 10 times is fire, another 10 times is air. You can just see the dimensions here. So the total width in terms of million yojanas of the universe, each individual universe is 10 raised to 18 yojanas. 10 raised to 18 means after 1, 18 zeros. Out of which only 500 is that inner universe. You cannot imagine, even if you try to imagine, you cannot imagine. But it's like, how to say, even this may be a wrong example, but it is like a tiny mustard seed in the center of possibly a big football. Tiny mustard seed, where the tiny mustard seed is the inner diameter of the universe. Actually, this is also an understatement because it's 10 raised to 7 times, but I am just trying to help you imagine. Maybe the size of the football is the size of a football stadium, and there is a mustard seed at the center. That is the kind of dimensional proportions. And that too may be an understatement. Okay. So this is just giving you an overall dimensional view. You don't need to by heart the numbers, but I just want you to conceive that there is a tiny means by the size of the universe, tiny 500 million yojanas. And the top 16.2 million yojanas out of that 250 million, because 250 is the radius and 500 is the diameter. The top 16.2 million yojanas is free space, and then the outer shells start, which are these. Okay, so I'm just placing them next to each other so you can see. Sorry, here. Okay, you can see now. So it is just mind-boggling. In some shastras, instead of 7 coverings, 10 coverings are mentioned, and the reason for the 10 coverings is because the Mahat Tattva, it is said beyond the Mahat Tattva, there is the Pradhan, and the Pradhan has 3 modes which are in equilibrium: Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. Again, each 10 times, 10 times, 10 times. Some scriptures describe 7, some describe 10. So in one sense, the 7th itself can be expanded with these 4, Mahat, and then the Pradhan in terms of Tamas, Rajas, and Sattva. So 7 and 10 is actually the same. It's only that the 7th layer is further divided. Something like that. Okay. So this is how Pavaneshwar Prabhu explains. I'm just sharing that. Okay. Now the interesting question is, what is happening in these 4 higher planetary systems? Now that is going to be our discussion for the next 10-15 minutes. And then we are going to be discussing something here. You can see something special here. If you remember, we discussed that above the Satyalok, the Satyalok is Brahmalok, and up to the universal covering is 16.2 million yojanas of free space. Even though we discussed that it is generally free space, currently, since some time, and I'll go into that story in a while, there is a special Vaikuntha planet which is situated above Brahmaloka and below the universal coverings. This Vaikuntha is also oftentimes referred to as Maha Vaikuntha. This Vaikuntha is a Vaikuntha within the material world, where Lord Vaikuntha resides. We'll discuss the story of Lord Vaikuntha a little later, but just remember this for now. So he's residing there with Lakshmi. So this is Vaikuntha within the universe, where Lord Vaikuntha resides. Obviously, there is Kshirodakshay Vishnu here. There is Garbhodakshay Vishnu under the water. There's another form of Vishnu, if you remember, who is where we discussed. Anybody remembers? One?
It's in Polestar, Roger.
Polestar we already discussed. It's Kshirodakshay Vishnu. So this is Lord Vaikuntha. This is Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Then Garbhodakshay Vishnu is in the Garbhodak ocean. It's not visible here. There is another Vishnu who is
The Super Soul, Prabhuji.
Super Soul is the expansion of this Kshirodakshay Vishnu. There's one more Vishnu we said who's residing on top of the which mountain?
Manasottara.
Yeah. So there is one more sorry, not Manasottar, Loka Loka. Yeah. So anyway, so the point I'm trying to mention is there are multiple forms of Lord even within the universe. And obviously, wherever the Lord resides is a type of Vaikuntha. But this Vaikuntha is special, and we will discuss a bit more about it. It is very interesting, and I'm going to share a few stories about this Vaikuntha. But before that, Vaikuntha is way at the top. We are now journeying from the pole star gradually upwards. Of course, before I forget, beyond the coverings of the universe, the Bhagavatam says after the last covering, beyond that is the realm of the liberated souls. So there are no conditioned souls there. There is the Brahma Jyoti, and then there are the Vaikunthas, but all liberated souls are there. No material bodies, no material elements, no influence of the Gunas. It is Shuddha Sattva, pure existence. There is Brahman, then there is the Kailash of the spiritual world, where Sadashiv resides. Beyond that are the Vaikunthas, and within the Vaikunthas there are so many realms, and then there is Saket Dham of Lord Ram, and then there is Krishna Loka. Within Krishna Loka there is Mathura, there is Dwarka, there is Goloka. So long way to go. And we are all trying to buy ticket to Goloka. And where are we right now? We are here somewhere at this tip. Of course, if we were to take this journey on our own effort, we might as well give up right now. But we are dependent on the mercy of the Lord and the Guru. Esham aham samudharta mrityu samsara vartmani bhavami nachirat partha mayyavesh. That I become, Krishna says, the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death for those who fix their mind on me. So please don't worry, you don't have to get some high-tech Google map to find your way to Goloka Vrindavan. How exactly you have to cross all these places, and how I have to penetrate the coverings of the universe, and then how I find my way. No need to worry. When we become qualified, the Lord will send his messengers from the spiritual world to escort us exactly where we need to go. So that is actually the least of our problems. Our only problem is to become Krishna conscious. So let us not have any other concern. Anyway, let's come back to the topic. Maharlok. So this is some information which has been gathered across various scriptures. So I'm going to be briefly sharing. We'll take around 5-7 minutes, not a lot of description. This is something interesting. So I hope it's okay if I take around 10 odd minutes beyond. Yeah, I hope that's okay. I want to wrap up this topic. It's very interesting. So the Maharlok is the abode of great sages and rishis. Typically, those who are thoroughly done with material life. Bhagavatam, in one place, it says, especially 11th Canto, 18th chapter, 9th verse, says, the Vanaprasthas practicing severe penances become so emaciated that they appear to be merely a bag of bones and skin. Thus worshipping me, who am penance personified, he goes to Maharloka, and from there eventually attains liberation. So essentially, Maharloka means at least a thoroughly dedicated Vanaprastha. Means he's not actually, he has renounced material life. He's no longer interested in material life. He is totally devoted to cultivation of higher spiritual. Those who are great yogis, the scriptures say, who are advanced and who have developed subtle bodies and who are advanced in the yogic process. Some of them may have Ashtasiddhis also. All these great yogis are able to travel beyond Dhruvalok. So, beyond Dhruvalok, they are able to travel in their subtle body. So these realms, you may wonder, oh, I can see the pole star, I can see all these nakshatras, I can see all of this. Where is Mahar, Tapar, Satya? No, they are not visible to the eyes. Of course, even these other lokas, they have a gross aspect at least, so there is something we can see. Even though they also have a subtle aspect, they also have a gross aspect. But Mahar, Janar, Tapa, Satya, there is no gross aspect that is there in the sky. So we are unable to see anything in the sky in terms of Mahar, Janar, Tapa. That's why great sages who are very advanced in yogic siddhis are able, in their subtle bodies, Pavanantaratmanam, the scriptures say, in the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavad. By worshipping the Lord, by performing austerities, by following Ashtanga Yoga, and by cultivating Jnana as well as Samadhis, these yogis can go beyond the Saptarishis, beyond Dhruva, and go to the upper planetary systems. Why they are able to go upper? Because they have even become indifferent to Swarga. Because Swarga, for those who are still attached to material enjoyment, is so exciting that they will not want to go up. Because why? Up there is no sensual enjoyment. Mahar, Janar, Tapa, Satya, you're not going to see any apsaras. You're not going to be seeing. Of course, it's a very serene, beautiful realm. Everyone there is engaged in austerity, meditation, discussion of Hari Katha, and spiritual truths. That's all that happens there. It is said on all these planetary systems, Mahar, Janar, Tapa, Satya, the lifetime, and we will discuss about each of these, really, but I just want to mention this now. The lifetime of those who attain these higher planets, upper planets, is said to be the duration of Mahakalpa. Kalpa is a day of Brahma. Mahakalpa is Dviparardha. It's the entire lifetime of Brahma. These living entities, these exalted sages, live for an entire lifetime of Brahma. It is said those who attain Maharloka, the great sages, they are easily able to live there up to the end of the Kalpa. Actually, they can stay longer, but usually what happens? What happens at the end of the Kalpa?
There is partial dissolution.
Haribo, there is partial dissolution. Bhu, Bhuva, and Swaha are wiped out during the night of Brahma. It is said, this is something very interesting. When the end of the day of Brahma comes, which means the 14 Manvantaras have ended, 1000 Chatur Yugas have ended. After that period comes and Brahma's night is about to come, from Shesha, who's at the bottom, supporting, 11 Rudras appear. 11 forms of Lord Shiva. These 11 Rudras appear in a fearsome form. They all open their third eye. And from their third eye, very destructive fire emanates, which burns the entire Bhuva Swaha to ashes. So, sometimes we hear about Lord Shiva opening his third eye and burning everything. This is what happens at the end of Kalpa. Not at the end of the entire creation. That time Mahavishnu breathes in and everything goes. Kalpanta. What is burnt? Everything. Bhu, Bhuva, Swaha. The planets are burnt. Sun, moon, stars. Everything is reduced to ashes. Now, burning the sun means this must be something serious. So, I don't know details of how exactly it happens. But everything is incinerated in the fire coming from the third eye of the 11 Rudras. And after that, there is massive rain. And it is said all the burnt three realms are washed away through this massive rain. Perhaps the Samvartaka clouds are doing this. Massive rain, and they are washed away, and the water which washed all the burnt, incinerated three lokas, washed away, and it pours down again back into the Garbhodak ocean. So nothing, wiped out. Bhubhuvasvaha, this entire region. Dhruva Loka is not affected because it is a spiritual planet. But scriptures say that because Maharlok is not very high above the pole star, and all these places are being burned, Maharlok sages start feeling the heat of the destructive fire in this region. So during the time of this, at the end of the Kalpa, many of them choose to go upwards. Okay, for your information, I'm just sharing. This is how it is described. And then, of course, when the Brahma's day comes again all this part of creation is recreated and again repopulated. And the whole cycle repeats. Day, night, day, night, day, night. But these abodes continue to remain. Maharloka becomes a bit heated up during the fire incineration, but otherwise, if they choose, the residents of Maharlok can continue to reside there until the end of creation. Some of them don't even wait until the end of creation. They, through their own progress, go to higher and higher and higher realms, come up to Satyaloka, and then go beyond the coverings of the universe and are able to transcend. Don't have to necessarily wait until the end of creation. But if they choose to, they can remain within Maharlok up to the end of creation. Those who follow the rules of Vanaprastha recommended by the sages with complete dedication, then as a result, one will be promoted to Maharloka. This is mentioned in the 7th canto, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Above the Maharloka, we discussed what Maharloka is. 10 million yojanas above Dhruva. 20 million yojanas above Maharloka is Janarloka. Janarloka is also the realm of great sages and rishis. They are a bit more advanced than the sages of Maharloka. One of the most prominent residents of Janarloka is Bhrigu. You've all heard of Bhrigu Muni? The Bhrigu Muni who tested Lord Vishnu long back, and we'll be coming back to this story a little later. He resides on this particular Janarloka planet. So great yogis who are on their way to achieve impersonal liberation, it is said those kind of yogis choose to stay here if they want to stay in this world until the end of the lifetime of Brahma, after which they attain impersonal Sayujya liberation. As the end of Brahma's life comes, they go upwards from Janaloka to Tapoloka, Satyaloka, and then they achieve, as the universe is destroyed, they actually, end of life, merge into the impersonal Brahman, go through the 7 layers of the universe and attain Sayujya. This is mentioned in the Bhagavad. On Janaloka, actually, discourses on Brahman happen. So those who are very interested in the impersonal aspect and are very purified souls, they prefer to stay on the Janaloka, because Janaloka topic of discussion is mainly Jnana, impersonal knowledge of the Lord's impersonal nature. It is said long back, the great Kumara, Sanandana, he had come down. I am saying come down because Sanandana resides on Tapoloka actually. He came down to Janaloka to give class on Brahman. And he gave detailed classes on Brahman and how to contemplate on the Brahman, which is anirdeshya, that which cannot be pointed to through the message of the Upanishads. Especially his conversation is recorded in the Brahmopanishad. So these kind of discussions happen on Janaloka. Muninam urdhvaretasam. Perfect celibates, not at all interested in deep philosophical thinkers who are always trying to contemplate on the absolute truth. Most of these people, most of these great souls, they are inclined towards personal. They are at a consciousness level higher than the Maharloka residents. Bhrigu is the most prominent. Higher than Janarloka is Tapoloka. Tapoloka, as the name suggests, is the loka of tapasya. These great sages, they are also very, very great sages. Tapolok is siddhas, perfected beings. And they are all very absorbed in austerities. The main, most prominent residents of Tapoloka are the four Kumaras. Sanak, Sanatan, Sanandan, and Sanat Kumaras. Perfected, great souls. And this planetary system, Tapoloka, is 80 million yojanas above Janaloka. It is said on this Tapoloka, because this is the place of austerity, one form of Lord Shiva, one of the Rudras is said to be residing on Tapoloka, always absorbed in meditation and deep austerities. So here also, all the sages, they live for the entire Mahakalpa, the entire duration of the life of Brahma, and they have a very serene, peaceful, wonderful life. So it's a very beautiful setting, full of peace. No job, no ordinary birth, old age, disease, death. Because once you go there, you stay there until the end of the universe. And you are not going to be facing the effects of time the same way that we living entities who are directly under the influence of the Kala Chakra within Bhubhuva Swaha are continuously being affected. Higher than Tapoloka is Satyaloka. Satyaloka, also known as Brahmaloka, is the residence of Lord Brahma. Generally, the most perfected entities stay on Satyaloka or Brahmaloka. Of course, headed by Brahma, but it is said beyond Brahma, the personified Vedas side here, the personified Puranas, the personified Upanishads, all these divine personalities are actually residing in Satyaloka. It is said actually on Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, there is also a very special form of Lord Vishnu, who also resides on Brahmaloka. I forgot the name of that form. I mentioned it in the last class, which Lord Brahma worships on his planet of Brahmaloka. If anybody recollects, you can mention here. I think it is Purusha, something Purusha. I don't recollect the exact name, but the Lord is there in a particular form here as well. But this loka is also not eternal. So again here, all kinds of perfected beings, those who have all kinds of mystic siddhis, those who can travel all over the universe using their vehicles. Brahmaloka is a place where there is no lamentation, no old age, no death, no suffering, no fear. So it is such a sublime, pure place that practically no suffering, except one suffering. Can anybody guess what kind of suffering is there? Brahmaloka. No fear, no lamentation, no birth, old age, disease, and death. There is only one kind of suffering in the mind. What kind
Seeing
of
the
suffering?
sufferings, is it seeing the sufferings of the people, in the Bhulok.
Hari Bol, Jai Ho. I think you are from there. Mitra who is from Brahmaloka, so he knows exactly what happens there. I'm reading from books, so I am telling. So it is said the only suffering for those beings is when they see the suffering of others. Para dukkha dukhi. Oh, actually, these people can also enjoy this kind of pleasure, but they are suffering. So their suffering is the suffering of those who are trapped in the cycle of birth and death. Most of these entities on Brahmaloka or Vaishnavas, unlike Janaloka, which is predominantly Brahman concept, Brahmaloka is where the Supreme Personality of God is worshipped. Most of them are, I don't know whether all, but almost all are bhaktas, headed by Lord Brahma. He's a great devotee self. Brahmaloka is inhabited by the personified Vedas, the Upavedas, Nyaya scriptures, the Itihasas, the Vedangas, the Puranas, Samhitas, etc., etc. Persons who are purified of sinful acts by the fire of knowledge, which was ignited by the air of yoga, and by persons who had attained Brahmaloka by the power of remembering the Lord's feet, which means bhakti. So these living entities who are here, of course, those who are totally purified of all material contamination, they can choose to leave their body anytime and go. Brahma doesn't do that because he has a seva to do until the end of his life. But other living entities, once they have perfected, they can choose to cross over the coverings of the universe and go to the supreme abode. But those who choose to stay until the end of the creation, it is said at the end of creation, when Brahma's lifetime ends, oftentimes all these purified souls, they all go upwards to Satyaloka, and from Satyaloka, all of them, they go across, cross the coverings of the universe and attain the supreme realm. We're talking about those who are fully purified. Okay, so that was a description of Mahar, Janar, Tapa, and Satya. I'm just going to take 5 more minutes. Please bear with me. I hope it's okay. Is it okay? Because I want to discuss about Maha Vaikuntha.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, thank you. So the best is for the last, because this is the place of our interest. So above the Satyaloka, there is 16.2 million yojanas of free space. It is free space, but within this free space, there is
The best
a
is for the last.
special
Because this is the
Vaikuntha.
place of our interest.
Sorry, it was not on mute. Thank you. There is a special place known as Mahavaikuntha. So it is said that in the 5th Manvantara, the Lord was born to a couple. Which couple? It is said the son of Shubhra and Vikuntha was born as Lord Vaikuntha. His appearance happened around in the 5th Manvantara. This is described in the 8th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. All of these are scriptural references. These are not imaginations. It is said when the Lord took this incarnation in the 5th Manvantara, we are currently in the 7th Manvantara, in this day of Brahma, the 5th Manvantara, when the Lord appeared as Lord Vaikuntha, Lakshmi Devi also appeared. It is said, Lakshmi Devi said to him, please create a Vaikuntha for me here also, this universe. So to please Lakshmi Devi, the Lord created a Vaikuntha planet in the free space between the universal coverings and Brahmaloka. So that place is known as Mahavaikuntha. So it is again a spiritual place, a spiritual planet. It is within the material universe. But that Vaikuntha is like almost like a replica of the Vaikuntha that we find in the spiritual realm, which is beyond the material universes. Now, this particular Vaikuntha planet has been described in various pastimes in the Srimad Bhagavad. So I want to briefly share these stories and we will conclude. Do you remember that in the Bhagavatam, the early cantos, in the third canto, there is a description of the 4 Kumaras going to Vaikuntha and being stopped by Jay and Vijay at the door of Vaikuntha. So you all remember? Sorry, not this one. Yes, you remember this? The 4 Kumaras. The 4 Kumaras who were sons of Brahma, who are currently residing in Tapoloka, they went all the way up until they came to Mahavaikuntha. They were stopped here. And then that whole interesting episode which we have discussed in the third canto. Finally, Lord Vishnu comes out and then, these 4 of them get the darshan of Lord Vishnu, Lord Vaikuntha here, with Lakshmi Devi being served by the divine associates. All of them are 4-armed. You can see all the associates are also 4-armed. They have bodies just like Lord Vishnu. That is the special thing about Vaikuntha. Everybody has a form just like Lord Vishnu. Of course, the Lord has some certain special characteristics, but generically, the form is practically similar. And that is when these 4 Kumaras smelled the flower and tulsi, which is offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, and the flowers adorning the Lord. When they smelled that, they who were previously attached to impersonal liberation, they became attracted to the Lord's bhakti. And from impersonalists, they became bhaktas. So this story, they did not cover the go outside the universe into Vaikuntha of the spiritual world, because you cannot do that in the material body. This happened at Mahavaikuntha in our universe. There are another 2 stories where Mahavaikuntha is referred to in the Bhagavatam. One story is that of Durvasa Muni. Durvasa Muni, if you remember, when he offended Ambarish Maharaj and then he was being chased by the Sudarshan Chakra all over the universe. So he went to Brahmalok. Brahma said, I can't save you from Sudarshan. He went to Shivalok, the abode of Shiva in this universe. Shiva said, I can't help you. Then he just said he went to Vaikuntha. So it is said he visited this Mahavaikuntha. So Durvas is also one of the Amshas of Lord Shiva. So he's actually so powerful that he can go to Mahavaikuntha. So this is not a normal feat. So, these are very extraordinary beings, so they can go. So he went there, and that's a long story. It's covered in the Bhagavatam later. We will discuss it in detail. Then ultimately, he had to take shelter of the lotus feet of Ambarish Maharaj, and only then he was saved. But he managed to go to Mahavaikuntha. Then there is a story, famous story of Bhrigu Muni who came to Mahavaikuntha. Bhrigu Muni wanted to test who out of Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu is supreme. There was this great discussion which perhaps happened on Maharloka, because he resides in Maharloka. Maharloka. Sorry, Tapoloka. Sorry. My bad. Janarloka. He resides in Janarloka. The 4 Kumaras reside in Tapoloka. So he, along with other sages, when they had a dispute of who amongst Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva is the supreme, and he verbally offended Brahma, he mentally offended Brahma, and Brahma got offended. He verbally offended Shiva, and Shiva got offended. But when he went to Mahavaikuntha and Lord Vishnu was residing there and resting there, he came and kicked the Lord on his chest, Lord Vaikuntha on his chest. But the pastime is, instead of the Lord being upset, the Lord said, oh, my dear Bhikkhu Muni, your feet are so soft, my chest is so hard. Started massaging. So that's also a beautiful pastime. So this pastime also happened at Mahavaikuntha. It is said after this pastime happened, even though the Lord didn't take offense, Mother Lakshmi was very upset that, what is this? This Brahmana is just coming up and kicking my husband on his chest. So she became very upset. She left Vaikuntha and came down to earth and went to Kolhapur and performed austerities. And then the Lord, seeing Lakshmi is not there, he came down on earth looking for her. And that is when that beautiful pastime of Venkateshwar and Padmavati's marriage and their residence in Tirupati happened. Okay? So these are all connected pastimes. So that Lord appeared down from this Mahavaikuntha. So these are all very, very beautiful pastimes. The reason why I'm mentioning is so that sometimes, we as devotees become very confused. What is this Vaikuntha that these personalities are visiting? So this is the Mahavaikuntha that these personalities visit. They are not going outside the universe. Going outside the universe was done by, because Narad Muni can go, because he has that power. And once Lord Krishna took Arjuna to see Mahavishnu on his chariot, we discussed that he went across the 7 coverings of the universe and he did that. But otherwise, that is not something which, unless a perfect purified soul is leaving the universe and attaining the spiritual realm, either Brahma Jyoti or the Vaikunthas, then of course they are covering. But otherwise, those who are not perfect cannot go beyond this universe. So that was the summary. So our discussion of the vertical planetary systems ends here. Sorry for the long class. I don't know whether you have time for asking questions or not. I mean, I'm okay, but if it is getting too late, those who want to drop can drop. So that is basically the description. We have the Bhubhuva Swaha, Dhruvaloka at the top, then higher Mahar, Janar, Tapa, Satya. Then in the space above Satyaloka, there is the Mahavaikuntha. Then there are the universal coverings. Beyond that is the space of the liberated. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Yes. Suraj Prabhu is patiently waiting to ask question. Yes.
It is a bit late, but I'll make it short. So all these 4 lokas, Janar, Mahar, Tapar, so why are they having exception? Is it because they are beyond the 3 gunas?
What do you mean exception?
So when the fire comes right out of Shesha, all this Bhubhuaswa will get burned, right? So why this exception given to them?
Because they don't need to go through this. That is for lower beings, that destruction. Beings Mahar and higher, they live up to the end of creation. It's a very subtle realm. It is subtler than even the Devalokas. So it is a different quality of life altogether. It's a much higher quality of life than even the Swargalokas. So those planets remain untouched until the end of creation.
So are they Nirguna platform, Prabhu?
They range from the sages who have totally no interest in material enjoyment. From that point onwards, all the way up to pure devotional service. That entire range is covered.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we said great sages start in Mahar. Those who are attracted to Brahman are in Janar. Tapo are a little bit more advanced, the perfected Siddhas, and the pure devotees are in Brahmaloka, like Brahma and other perfected beings and the personified Vedas. So there is a spectrum there, but none of them are interested in material activities or in material enjoyment. That is the key point to remember.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Prabhu. The second question, Prabhu.
Yes.
Sanal Kumaras, the 4 Kumaras are seen at the bottom of Shesha, where Shesha is teaching them Bhagavatam.
No, that was
And they're
temporary
on
visit.
top.
That was for the class.
Okay.
They went there for the class. So they gave class there and then they came up. So their usual residence is in Tapoloka. But they had that Bhagavatam class there once.
Okay.
So also they went to Mahavaikuntha once. So those are episodes, those are visits, but their normal residence is in Tapolok.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So like that, in the similar way, you will see, Indra also has, sometimes some of these personalities have multiple abodes or have pastimes in multiple places, but usually they have a particular regular residence. So it is like that.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Haribo. Yes, Santanam Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Pranam.
We know Yamatudas and Vishnu Tudas. Yamatudas take to the downside, and Vishnu Tuda will take us to Vaikuntha planet. Then who will? Then those who are going to these Swarga planets, who will take them?
There may be other divine agents who arrange for them to go. Definitely, they are not Yamadutas. Yeah. There are various laws of the nature of the universal system which guide the living entities according to their karma to the higher realms based on their qualification. So whether they are escorted like that or whether they take birth on that realm, that is decided by basis their karma. For example, one may take birth from earth if one is performing pious activities as the son of a particular devata on either Bhauma Swarga or Divya Swarga. So that it may not be an escorting in the same way as, Yamadutas escort a living entity in a subtle body for punishment. So that is one possible thing. But when we talk about Janar Mahar Tapar Satya, because there is no birth, because there is no, there is no marriage, there is no family life there. Janar Mahar, Janar Tapar Satya. They're all austere sages. They're all austere sages. So there is no, job, no business. There is no elaborate Varnashram system because everybody there is tapasvi. Everybody is just absorbed in spiritual cultivation exclusively. Nobody is interested in sensual enjoyment. So usually those realms, like what we discussed, when living entities in the lower planets perform enough tapasya, it is said generally, there is no mention of them taking birth there, but it is said generally when yogis attain a particular level of spiritual purification, through their subtle bodies, they are able to reach. Like Krishna mentions in the Bhagavad Gita, that the yogis who are in meditation, at a very advanced stage, they are able to decide which planetary system they want to go to. And through meditation, through their subtle body, they go to that realm. So there is some yogic process. I am obviously not conversant with it. But it seems that they have a yogic mechanism in a subtle way to attain those realms. How exactly they do it, we don't know. But yes, it doesn't look like that they are escorted to Janar Mahar Tapar Satya. It doesn't seem that they are born in Janar Mahar Tapar Satya in the conventional sense. That's how it seems to be from what we have heard and discussed.
Thank you, Prabhuji. And one more thing, in the Milky Ocean, where it is, Prabhuji? Is it in
The ocean of milk is on Dhruvalok. Within Dhruvalok, there is a Shvetadvipa. That Shvetadvipa has an ocean of milk, and on the inside the island of Shvetadvipa, Lord is residing.
Brahma recited the Purusha Suktam to invoke. It all happens in Dhruvalok, Prabhuji.
Yes, when he came to the bank of the milk ocean, that happened on Dhruvalok. Yes. But there is another form of Purusha, I think it is known as Purusha Avatar, if I'm not wrong, who resides, there's a specific form of the Lord also on Brahmalok, which he regularly worships. Lord Brahma regularly worships. So this is an exceptional situation where he came, because the Devatas generally can go up to Dhruvalok only. They can go up to the bank of the milk ocean. They don't have access to higher regions. So he met them there, border. He came to the milk shore, they came there and they all prayed. There also they cannot access the Lord directly. They all stood on the bank of the milk ocean and prayed. The Lord downloaded a message in the heart of Brahma, then Brahma repeated it to the Devatas. So that has happened on the bank of the milk ocean of Shvetadvipa in Dhruvalok.
The last one, the outer 7 layers, the first one is said like earth layer. So there also the living entities are there, or it is like
in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, the Bhagavatam doesn't mention about it. See, Prabhupada says Krishna says living entities are sarvagataha. These living entities are there everywhere. There is no place that they don't exist. So yes, the short answer to your question is yes. There are living entities in the universal coverings also. So if you want more information on this topic, you have to read Brihad Bhagavatamrita. There are unimaginable opulences and mystic potencies within these universal coverings, which are obviously practically inconceivable. We cannot even conceive heavenly planets. Forget what are we going to conceive of this. So those are described in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita. You can read about them there.
thank you.
So as the living entity goes through all these coverings also, he is enticed by different kinds of enjoyments even within them. Very, very subtle kind of enjoyments. We cannot even conceive of them and understand them. So to actually transcend the material atmosphere altogether, one has to have that firm taste in devotional service, which is above and beyond all these enjoyments. Okay. Haribo. Yes, Shalini Mataji wants to ask something.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I had one small doubt. Prabhuji, below the Dhruvaloka, there is the Saptarishi Mandal, right? Saptarishis. So that is their abode, like,
Yes.
because one of them is Brigu. So, like in the Saptarishis. So,
Saptarishis.
Janalok.
Is Brigu one of the Saptarishis, huh?
Yeah, Brigu, Vashishta, Tri.
Agastya, Atri, Bharadwaja, Gautam, Jamadagni, Vashishta, and Vishwamitra.
Okay, so not.
Not Mr. Brigu.
Okay. So Prabhuji, now, so the next question is like, so when there is this, after the Kalpantara, there is this Kalpanta, there is destruction. So even these abodes are destroyed, right? Because they're just below them.
Yes.
So the great sages, what will happen?
I don't know about these seven specifically. Maybe they go to the higher abodes.
Okay.
But there are Saptarishi. See, these 7 are actually positions. So different personalities in different kalpas will incarnate to become the Saptarishis. So these are the Saptarishis for the current kalpa. So it's a massive system. All these demigods' positions, the Saptarishis' positions, these are all positions. Those who are qualified by their karma, they occupy these positions in according to the Manvantara calculations or the kalpa calculations. So generally the devatas up to Swarga, every Manvantara they change. I believe, if I'm not wrong, even the Saptarishis change every Manvantara. But I need to check. But devatas definitely change every Manvantara. No election. There is only selection based on karmic qualification.
Okay.
So the current Indra at the end of the current Manvantara, he will step down from his position and Bali Maharaj will take over the position of Indra. Bali Maharaj is currently waiting in Sutala to become Indra. So it's a massive system. So when we understand all this, like what we discussed, the point is eventually we realize, I thought I am so important. And I thought I am so great. Even this Indra has to go. In one day of Brahma, there are 14 Indras. One day. And even they are burnt to ashes. Everything is burnt to ashes at the end of every kalpa. Everything is created in Bhu Bhuva Swaha from scratch. So this is unimaginable. Okay, did I answer your question?
Yes, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
So I'm not sure. Perhaps these sages may be going upwards, quite likely, because they are very great personalities. Some of them are pure devotees also. You understand Vashishta, Vishwamitra as pure devotees. Atri is the father of Dattatreya. So they are not ordinary personalities. I would think so. That they be, but at least their abodes are destroyed. That is for sure. But some of them may be going upwards.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you all for tolerating. I hope this was interesting for you. I thought I'd just take this chapter to conclude this whole section on the vertical universe. So I'm concluding here. Thank you very much. So next chapter is 24 is Vilaswarga. We will start our downward discussion. Planetary Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Samaveta Gaura Bhakta. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Haribo.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
What
Prabhuji.
excellent class.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Amit Prabhu. Thank you, everyone. Sneha ji,
Thank you,
Archana
Prabhuji.
ji. Thank you. Rita ji, thank you as always. Tarun, nice to see you. Suraj, Shalini Mataji. Sneha ji, Hare Krishna. Sridhari Mataji, Shraddha ji. Thank you so much for tolerating all this while. Sridhar ji, Hare Krishna. Anand Sundari Mataji, Sachi Prema Mataji. Patiently listening. Sarva Lakshmi Mataji, hope you are recovering well.